His father cleared his throat. It's hard for me to talk about your mama. I would never have believed that I could miss somebody the way I miss her. Saying her name pains me. But I'll say it for you, he said. I'll try on account of you. This isn't a very big line. What he says isn't long and it's not very big. But I'm thinking that maybe this moment is big. That this moment, Rob's father is able to say to Rob, I'm willing to put your need to grieve ahead of my own need to repress my emotions. Rob looked at his father's hands. They were the hands that had held the gun that shot the tiger. They were the hands that put the medicine on his legs. They were complicated hands, Rob thought. I'm wondering, who is the real Mr. Horton? What is Rob's father really like?
I think the real Mr. Horton is he's the loving and caring guy, but he struggles because he struggled throughout the book because his wife died, so he's really sad that his wife died, so it's hard for him to get through it because without his wife, he probably wouldn't make it with Rob.
I disagree because even when Rob's mother was alive, he was still a kind of mean father, and he also shot the tiger.
So I'm wondering, right, how we can combine these two ideas of these two separate people, right? The word we use for that is duality, right? So what I heard you say was that you built on the ideas that we've covered throughout the entire book with this idea that a person isn't always just one way. Just like life isn't black and white, people have a duality or even more than that. So in this way, sometimes we see Rob's father acting out of anger, and sometimes we see him being extremely gentle and kind. You want some macaroni and cheese for dinner? His father asked, looking back up at Rob. Scholars, when I look at the next paragraph, I realize something different is happening. I realize that this part is extremely important. It's imperative that I understand what's happening in it, because I can tell right away that the author has offset the paragraph. Instead of indenting, she's left it as a block. So I need to pay attention to its importance as I continue to read. That night, Rob dreamed he and Sistine were standing at the grave of the tiger. They were watching and waiting. He didn't know for what, but then he saw a flutter of green wings and he understood. It was the wooden bird, only he wasn't made of wood. He was real. And he flew up out of the tiger's grave, and they chased him, laughing and bumping into each other. They tried to catch him, but they couldn't. Why do you think this paragraph is so important?
I agree with you, but I would like to add that, you know how the bird rose up out of the grave and started flying away? It's like Rob's sadness was rising up and his happiness was coming out.
So what I heard so many of you saying was that this paragraph is where many of the symbols used throughout the stories, many of the ideas that we kept hearing repeated chapter by chapter, all come to a head here. We see this wooden bird rising out of the grave, we see the tiger rising out of the grave, but most importantly, we see Sistine and Rob make a change, and they're actually elated, they're happy. Here is a really deep question that I'm not sure we've ever considered before, which is, perhaps that tiger has been a figment of Rob's imagination. So my question for you is the tiger real?
I think the tiger is figurative because in some part of the story, it said when Rob's father killed the tiger, the tiger was a symbol of Rob to open up his suitcase more. And so he opened up his suitcase and expressed all his feeling to his dad. Kiana.
I agree with you, Aisha, but I also like to add that the tiger is figurative because, well, Rob, when we discussed that when Rob and Sistine set the tiger free, it was like Rob setting his sadness free and letting the happiness overcure his body, and so it's now like the tiger, like Ariel said, was sitting on his suitcase, but now he's let the tiger go and let the tiger release from on his suitcase and letting those sad moments and sad times rise on out and letting the happiness come out.
So I wanted to bring it back to part of the text, some textual evidence, right? We're talking about this idea that perhaps, and that's what you and I were talking about, that perhaps this tiger has been imaginary, figurative in a way. And I couldn't help but think of how Rob used the tiger as kind of a coping mechanism, especially when he's being bullied. So I went back to chapter 11, and I came to this part where Norton is screaming at Rob, and it says, Rob stared at the sidewalk and imagined the tiger eating Norton and Billy Threemonger and then spitting out their bones.
The tiger is real because if it was his imagination, the dad couldn't have killed it and Sistine couldn't have saw it because it wasn't her imagination. Ari.
I'm so with you because I feel like also in the beginning of the book, Rob said that there was a tiger on top, sitting on top of its suitcase, and he had never even seen the tiger before until Beauchamp came and told him about the tiger and gave him the keys.
No, that's not true because he saw. Remember, he did the drawing at the beginning.
He already knew about the tiger.
Remember, he was at school and he had the
Into
drawing.
the room with the tiger, it was just that he found him and Sistine found the tiger inside of the woods by itself, locked up in a cage when it was pacing back and forth.
Wow, what a great debate. What a great job of being the contrarian. Now listen, we almost have like a crew over here, right? Saying, no, that's absolutely, truly, literally a real tiger. We're trying to say, here's my evidence. Yes, this is where they found it locked up. But then Ariel brings in this piece of evidence that perhaps it's a figurative tiger, that it's that tiger sitting on top of the suitcase. So wait, calm, and let's think for a second. Where are some other pieces of evidence in the text to prove one side or the other?
Miss Klein, I would like to interject because in a way the tiger is kind of real and kind of not real because Beauchamp showed him the tiger and Rob's father shot the tiger, and also it's kind of like his. And also, it's not real because it's kind of like his coping mechanism, and he keeps dreaming it. For instance, he dreamed Sistine riding the tiger and them going deeper into the forest, and he dreamed the tiger in the grave.
Taylor, I'm starting to revise my thinking now because now what you and Kayla W said about the tiger being so-so, I'm starting to agree because Beauchamp, Rob's father,